everyone. So this is going to be our last lesson for the week, and you're definitely going to want to make sure you have your calculator ready for this. We're going to talk about using tables and how to use tables specifically on your calculator. So make sure that you go get that, and let's get started. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to use a table to find the limit. And the way that we're going to use that is we're going to start by putting in functions on our calculator. So grab that out, and we're going to start. Just type in the function in your y equals space, as if you were going to graph it. So in this case, you'll just type in your y is equal to tan of 3x, make sure you've got these parentheses, divided by the tangent of 5x. Since we're using tangent, make sure that your calculator is in radian modes whenever you're looking at anything involving trig in this class. So then, instead of going to graph, you're going to hit the second button above the graph, and that's going to take you to a table. Because we're not going to use a graph, we're going to use a table for this. And the reason for that is that if you do click graph, you get something that's pretty wild for this function. So we're going to use a table instead. And you'll end up with a table of values, very similar to what we do when we would graph functions back in the day, where you have your x values, 0, 1, 2, 3, and then you have your y values that it comes up with on its own. And this is, x, f of 1, f of 2, f of 3. Now what you'll notice here is that we are looking at the limit as x approaches 0, and if you actually plug that in, you get an error. Because if you actually plug in f of 0, you'd end up with 0 over 0. Can't have a 0 in the denominator like that. So this is one of those cases where it doesn't have a value at that point, but it does have a limit. And then we're going to find that using the table. And just like with a graph, you can change what we can think of as the window. We can change these numbers. And the goal is to look at what's happening really close to 0. And what we're going to do is we are going to change the table settings, which is the second function of the window button. As I said, this is very similar to window. So you're going to click there, and it's going to give you two options, and I will illustrate what they are right here. The first one is going to be what is called your table's starting value. In this case, that is 0. And you're going to want to make that to go a little bit above 0 because we want to see what's happening on both sides, because we want to see what's happening on the negative numbers and what's happening on the positive numbers, since this isn't a one-sided limit. So I'm going to change my start value from 0 to maybe negative 0.05. So just a tiny bit above. And then what the next option that we have is that you have your change in your table, and that's the amount of space between each number. So in this case you have 1 because there's one space between each of these different terms, and since I want to know what's happening right around that, I'm going to change that value to 0.01, so it's going to be really, really, really close. So you should have something that looks like this. Don't worry about any of the other settings right now. Just go with this, and then go back to your table using second and then the graph function. So then this is what your new table should look like. You're starting at negative 0.05, and then you're going in these much smaller increments down, and you can see that these numbers are a lot closer together than they were in the first table that we looked at. We still have an error of 0, but if you look at right around 0, you have 0.59, 0.599, similar answers on the positive end. So if you have it just on the other side, this is the same, 5997. And we can see based on this that the limit that it's approaching, and this does require a little bit of a logical leap, is that, oh, these are getting really, really close to 0.6. And that's actually going to be the limit, and this kind of makes sense here because it doesn't always work out this way with trig, but you can think, oh, well, these are both tangent, and then it's 3x over 5x, which would be 0.6. Again, this does not always work out, it just happens to work out here. But you can use some of the logic here to say, well, the point doesn't exist, but the limit would be 0.6. Now, some of your calculators might even fill this in for you because they are intelligent enough to know that, but you can't actually plug in 0 here, and that's just an important thing to note. Let me know if you have any questions about using tables or about limits, and I'll talk to you all later. Have a great day.